All right, everyone. Well, it's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, good afternoon. My name is David Fagerstrom. I'm with Sundt Construction, and this is what we're calling the virtual subcontractor outreach meeting for the Willamette water supply water treatment plant. Just a quick thing before we get started. It looks like everyone is muted and no video, but I just want to ask that everyone stay on mute and no video so that we can preserve bandwidth and we have good audio. If you have any questions or anything like that, I guess I'll ask that you leave those towards the end, or you can always just type those into the chat. All right, so again, my name is David Fagerstrom. I'm the Senior Project Manager for Sundt Construction. With me today is Michael Mayer and Jared Wagner. Both are also project managers working with me on this project that'll be responsible for various scopes of the project. We've also got on the call today the project manager for the program for this project, Matthew Gribbins. And then my last note here is we want to make sure that we get everyone's contact information. So I'll ask that you email us your contact information and feel free to also post your information into the chat. Mike, Jared, and I have already done that, so as we're going through, if you don't get our email information taken down, you can find it in the chat. So real quickly, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on who Sundt Construction is. Sundt Construction is pretty much a national builder general contractor. Our headquarters are in Tempe, Arizona. And you can see on this map here that we have offices all throughout the South and Southwest, up through the Pacific Northwest. Sundt was founded back in 1890. And we are a 100% employee-owned company. Sundt Construction operates in multiple building types. We have a few different divisions within our company. Our group presenting today and for this project is part of our industrial group that specializes in water and wastewater treatment plants. We're one of the larger water and wastewater builders in the U.S. We also have a building group division that focuses on vertical construction, your typical high-rise healthcare buildings, things of that nature. Our third division is our transportation group, which focuses on roads, bridges, and those types of horizontal projects. We also have a concrete division within the company that supports our other groups, self-performing all the structural concrete work. All right, so our agenda for today's meeting, we have several topics that we wanted to hit on, and you can see what they are here, but the main purpose of this meeting is to present information on the project that we have just outside of Portland. It's the Willamette water supply water treatment plant. It is a CMGC project, so this meeting is going to look an awful lot like a typical pre-bid, but this is not the official pre-bid for the project. We basically just wanted to put the information out there and let the subcontracting community know of the bid opportunities that we're going to have coming up for this project. This is a very important project for the community and for Willamette, and it's important that that we provide several bidding opportunities for the local community. So we just wanted to make sure that we spend a significant amount of time making sure that the community is aware and give you plenty of opportunity to be prepared to propose on the project. All right, so one of the core values of Sundt is safety. It's very important to us. Our objective is that nobody gets hurt on any of our jobs. We want everyone to go home at the end of the day the same way that they came to the job site. So we typically start all of our meetings with a safety share, and so that we wanted to do the same thing here to just kind of reiterate the importance of safety to us. So the topic that we chose for today's meeting is distracted driving. We all know that with the impacts from COVID, that a lot of people have been working from home. But as we move past that and people start to get back into the office and start spending more time on the roads, we thought distracted driving would be a good topic for today. So we just put up a few stats related to distracted driving, and these are all Oregon-related stats. So you can see here from 2014 to 2018, there were over 20,000 crashes or incidents involving distracted driving in Oregon. In that same time frame, almost 2,000 of those were related specifically to cell phone usage. So cell phone usage is a huge factor when it comes to distracted driving. Again, in that same time frame, 151 fatalities and injury crashes occurred in our teenage drivers. So again, distracted driving is a huge thing. So we just want to remind everybody, as you're getting back to work, getting back into the office, we've all been doing Teams meetings just like today, and so we spend a lot of time, at our computers or on our phones. We just want to stress the importance of putting those phones away while you're driving into the office. Okay, so we thought we'd start with a quick project overview. What we're showing here is an overall map, the program highlights, and this is program-wide, project-wide. So the project is made up of the Willamette Water Supply Commission, which consists of the Tualatin Valley Water District, the City of Hillsborough, and the City of Beaverton. It's a substantial project, as you can see here, over $1 billion associated with the whole program. The whole project consists the whole program consists of multiple projects or phases, components of the job, and we've listed out what those are here. There is a raw water facility down in Wilsonville that pulls water off of the Willamette River. There's a series of transmission lines that run throughout the communities that have been broken up into multiple projects. There's over 30 miles of transmission pipe. There is also a reservoir and storage site used to store the treated water. And then the last item here, which is our project, the water treatment plant. I have a note here. The water treatment plant is delivered through the CMGC delivery method, and that's where the program, through a qualification process, evaluated and interviewed multiple firms, and Sundt was selected to be the CMGC for this job. So early on in design, Sundt has been working with the owner and the engineer, who is CDM Smith, to evaluate the drawings and come up with the best alternatives to provide the best product at the best price for the owner. And as part of the CMGC delivery method, Sundt, as the general contractor, is responsible for procuring all the subcontracts and the materials for the job. So zooming in closer, this is just an aerial image of the job site where the project is located. We are basically at the southwest corner of Tualatin Sherwood Road and southwest 124th Street in Sherwood. So this is, call it 30 minutes outside of Portland. The site is a greenfield site. We've got it pinned there on this aerial. Nothing is there right now, but it is a heavily wooded area. There's lots of development going on in the area and the surrounding area.
A key item to point out here is that this project is being designed as a seismic resilient facility, and due to that design nature, this site was specifically chosen because it sits on a knob of basalt bedrock, which will require basically for any civil or underground utilities removal of that basalt bedrock in order to be able to install work. So just want to point that out to everybody.
Okay, so now zooming in a little bit closer, we have one of the site plans that we pulled out of the drawings, and we just wanted to highlight some of the project particulars, the project stats. As I mentioned, it's a greenfield site, heavily wooded. Overall site encompasses about 22 acres. There are multiple treatment areas. Again, it's a water treatment plant. So there's different processes required to treat the water. Included with the treatment processes is a administration building that's roughly 15,000 square feet. Continuing on with some more of the project highlights, with any water treatment plant, you end up with a lot of structural concrete. We're calculating about 40,000 yards of concrete. There's a lot of earthwork to move, excavate, and drill and blast, like Michael said. We've got about 65,000 cubic yards of cut and fills on the site, reshaping the site, getting it to final grades. There's about 180,000 yards of structural excavation and about 120,000 yards of excavation just associated with the on-site civil yard piping. There's about $20 million in process equipment. When the water goes through the treatment process, there will be a storage reservoir on site for that water, and that's a 10 million gallon pre-stressed concrete reservoir. Throughout the site, we've got multiple pre-engineered metal buildings. With that, there's several building trade opportunities. Your structural steel, masonry, windows, painting, metal roofing, metal siding, doors and windows. So we hit the gamut of pretty much all your CSI divisions on this project. As Michael said, the last item I have here is seismic qualification. Part of this project is to construct a seismically resilient facility that can be in operation within so many hours of a potential seismic event. So I wanted to highlight that here because there's special requirements within this job to meet the seismic qualification. So as we move forward, we thought it would be a good idea to just kind of look a little bit closer at some of the process areas. That previous slide was overhead view of the site, and what we're showing here and on the next few slides is a series of screenshots from the 3D model. This one right here that you see is the main process building or treatment complex. Pretty much all the water, the treatment process happens in this part of the facility. Up towards the top left is where the water, the raw water comes in from off the street and makes its way over to this portion of it. It's the ballasted flock facility. Again, that's in the top, towards the top left in the back. Then from there, the water goes through a series of treatment process and pipes over to the ozone generator and contactor. From there, makes its way to the filters, and this is going left to right towards the top of the image here. Then after the water is filtered, again, heads through a series of pipes towards the bottom right of the page here into the UV and disinfection building. Also within this treatment complex or process building is your chemical systems. That's your bottom left in that middle open area. The main chemical area is indoor facility where your chemical storage and pumping are. And then to the right of that is the outdoor chemical facility. That's your carbon dioxide and your liquid oxygen storage. One thing that I didn't mention is over on the left-hand side, it's somewhat cut off on this image, is the administration building. That's where the operations staff will be housed, maintenance staff, and your lab facilities.
And that is I would refer to it as a Class A office structure. So there's office spaces as well as locker rooms, break rooms, and a full laboratory in that admin building.
Okay, so moving to the next part of the process, we have two images here. They're showing the same facilities just from opposite direction. On the image on the left-hand side is looking from, I guess we'll call it the west towards the east, and in the foreground here is the EQ overflow structure. This is basically a dual concrete tank that's mostly buried in the ground with an open top. In the background, you see the round structure. That's the 10 million gallon pre-stressed clear well where the finished water is stored. And then to the right of that, in the back of the image here, is the backside of the finished water pump station. That's where the high volume vertical turbine pumps are housed that send the water through the transmission lines. Over on the right of that image, just to the right of the EQ overflow, is the equipment storage building. It's basically just a place for the operations staff to store some of their equipment. Both the equipment storage building and the finished water pump station are pre-engineered metal buildings. The equipment storage is slab on grade, typical building. The finished water pump station has a wet well, concrete wet well, excavated in the ground several feet down with large diameter pipe connecting it to the clear well. The image on the right, as I said, is the same thing, just looking from a different direction. Basically, it's the viewpoint standing at southwest 124th Street, looking to the southwest in the road to the right, or on the right side that surrounds the north side of the property is Southwest Ore Drive. So it's right at the corner, pretty much where you turn off of 124th Street. So the last part of the project is the solids handling facilities. So as you go through and treat the water, various treatment processes pull off, various solids and microscopic particles that are then sent to the solids facility. In the front here in the image is the thickeners. These are circular concrete tanks that have like sludge collectors or circular clarifiers inside them where any solids are settled out. It's then transferred over to the thickened sludge pump station, which is shown just above the thickeners. From there, there's another concrete holding tank. This one's mostly above ground. It's the thickened sludge holding tank, and that's where the solids are held prior to them being processed in the solids dewatering building. That's basically a two-story building where the solids are pumped through and up to a piece of equipment that takes the liquid out of the solids, then drops into a truck where the solids are then hauled off-site. So that's pretty much the treatment process. Next, we wanted to give you an idea of what the project schedule looked like. So what we have here is a very basic, high-level Excel summary of our schedule. What Michael will talk about here in a little bit is the bidding process that will be coming up here at the end of this year. But once that is all done, we're anticipating executing a GMP and getting notice to proceed the beginning of next year in February 2022. Once we get that, that will allow us to start the mobilization process and the work on site. Mentioned this a couple times that the site is heavily wooded, so it'll take some time to get the site cleared, leveled off, and stabilized so that we can start mobilizing project teams. So the first few months of the job is going to be doing those activities. Then you can see that starting the middle of the year, really closer towards the third quarter of the year, many of the other trades will start to ramp up, beginning with some of your underground pipe, your underslab pipe, your electrical, plumbing, things of that nature. And then the rest of the trades will start to build off of that. And you can kind of see that really the bulk of the work really picks up second quarter of 2023. That's when we're going to be having probably still some miscellaneous earthwork going on, but mainly your structural concrete, some of your process mechanical, the clear well construction will be going on, and then
your architectural trades will start off about that time as well.
Yep. So 2023, called the middle of the year, is really when most of this work will be going, and then ramping down into 2024. Substantial completion for the water treatment plant is in March of 2025. A component of this job is commissioning and startup of all the transmission lines that are served through this treatment plant, and a lot of that work will be happening in 2025 with final completion being March of 2026. But for the purposes of everyone on this call, our work sits within 2022 to 2024.
All right. So I'm going to kind of go through, David's kind of went through the broad strokes of the project and what the scopes entail. I'm going to go through kind of what we anticipate is coming up for our bid schedule and what that really means for you all. So right now we're anticipating to have 3 GMPs, which is what we refer to each of the bidding efforts. A GMP is a guaranteed maximum price. So part of the deliverable that we owe to the client is we have to collect all of the pricing from you all, combine it into an overall package to the owner that we're saying we guarantee the price for these scopes is going to be X. Now, it does not mean that you all are locked into a guaranteed maximum price. We are locked into the owner as a guaranteed maximum price. You all will either be most likely be held to a lump sum, either a best value, selected through best value, or through a low price best qualified approach. So GMP 1, which is really the make ready work to get up out of the ground. So this will be site clearing, the civil package, site utilities, process piping, temporary electrical, temporary water, and really just be able to get mobilized on site, because as David and I said, this right now, this is a completely greenfield, heavily forested plot of land. So it's going to take a couple months to be able to clear it out and make it ready before concrete or any other subsequent trades can start. So GMP 1, we're planning to advertise for bids starting September 21st. We will hold a pre-bid kickoff meeting on October 12th, with ultimately bids due on November 11th. And then GMP 2, which is a bulk of all the remaining scopes of work, other than landscaping, sites, hardscaping, and asphalting, and some miscellaneous site appurtenances would be included in GMP 3. So GMP 2, we're planning to pretty much go right after GMP 1, that we're going to be advertising at the end of November, with a pre-bid kickoff the week before Christmas, and then ultimately bids due February 10th of 2022. And then GMP 3, that bidding effort is out in 2023 due to not needed for schedule purposes.
Right, and along with schedule purposes, these are some of the items that it's pretty far out in construction, and and, we want to be cognizant of, price escalations that may occur if we were to happen to, bid that today, right? It's like asphalt, things of that nature that have some volatility. So we wanted to have that bidding effort be a little bit closer to when the work would start, so that you have some more certainty in the bids that you're able to submit.
Yeah. And then we just want to note that there is a potential that GMP 1 and GMP 2 may be combined. And if that does occur, we will be publicly re-advertising that out to everyone, letting everyone know what that effort looks like and if any dates change. Potential bid opportunities. So kind of as David and I mentioned previously, there's numerous work category packages is what we call them, but essentially defined scopes of work that you all have a chance to be able to bid on. Right now we have about 70, almost 80 work category packages that are to be spread out across those 3 GMP bid efforts. On the left-hand side here, you can kind of see roughly where estimated total costs are for each of those work category packages. So as I said, we have work category packages, which each of them will have a defined written scope of work. So basically, this is what the inclusions and exclusions are of that scope. So that way, that defines ultimately what the parameters of what you all would be bidding on. As I mentioned earlier, most of the work category packages are a low bid, best responsive. So it's not necessarily hard bid that we go with the lowest number at the point of bid submission. There does have to be a we call it abstracting, but a comparison that needs to be done. Make sure that the entirety of the scope is picked up and recognized before we turn in the GMP to the owner. And then we do recognize that some of the work category packages will be of best value with qualifications. And those are primarily the larger dollar values and more complex scopes of work that ultimately we need to be able to make sure that the firms that are going to be executing that work are qualified, that have a history of doing this type of technical work, especially in a water or wastewater type environment or industrial environment. Because there are nuances, take concrete, for example. There's nuances with doing water-containing structures, which are very typical in this type of work, versus doing a flat work, a commercial-style building or a residential type work. So GMP1, this is a slide of the packages that we anticipate to be included in GMP1. So just kind of walk everyone through this chart, is the best way to put it. So what's shown here is everything is GMP1. We have on here what we anticipate to be subcontracted versus a purchase order. And then on the far right-hand side is the selection method. So is it low bid? Is it going to be best value? So like I mentioned earlier, GMP1 is really earthwork getting up out of the ground. It also, I forgot to mention earlier, it also does include some of the long lead process equipment that we've identified we need to get the ball rolling on that in order to ensure that we get the equipment here on time. And everything you see here on this screen, we're anticipating is we bidding November 11th of this year. Next, we'll move on to GMP2. And GMP2, there are a couple slides. It's kind of a long list of work category packages that will be bid out in GMP2. But this goes through concrete, masonry, structural steel. We do have cross-laminated timber at the admin building. FRP components, damp proofing and waterproofing, metal roof and wall panels, PVC roofing, caulking and sealants, expansion joints, doors and hardware, overhead coiling doors, aluminum framed entrances and storefronts, gypboard walls, the acoustical panel ceilings, flooring, sound absorbing walls, painting. All of these we anticipate is subcontracted. And the majority of all these will be low bid. There are a few that we do anticipate concrete will be a best value, as well as painting. And the reason why painting is we're looking to as best value is there are some chemical coatings that are required in the chemical facilities, as well as epoxy type coatings that go on exposed piping that we need to be able to ensure that we have a qualified firm performing that work. Continuation of GMP2 scopes. Again, more Division 10 work. Going into Division 12, window treatments, casework, pre-engineered metal buildings. There are a few pre-engineered metal buildings. I believe there's 4 that are on site that will need to be designed and procured through that method. Elevators, and then fire protection, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and then process integration, which is process piping and all of the components for the actual functionality of the piping systems for the process equipment. And then going into a lot of the process equipment itself, components of that. We have cranes and hoists. Continuing on that, all the pumps and equipment, really all this is for all the process equipment that we've determined is not long lead, but will be included in GMP2. So this slide and the previous 2 slides, all of this scope will be bidding on February 10th.
As Mike had mentioned, though, there is a potential for GMP 1 and 2 to be combined, and just keep in mind that this date, if they do get combined, we'll shift sooner.
Yep, and we will publicly announce that if that happens, so that way you all are aware of that. And then GMP 3, which is the last package. This is the one that does not bid until 2023. This is really the final scope of work. That includes paving, curbs, gutter, and sidewalks, striped signage, chain link fences and gates, and landscaping. So part of the GMP process and the CMGC that's allows us the ability to write our scopes of work and be able to include what we call front-end documents. And those front-end documents, unlike a traditional hard bid job where the scope is 100% clearly defined in extreme detail within the drawings and specs, CMGC and the design methods that we have allow us the flexibility to be able to execute and proceed with work while design is still being fine-tuned, and through that to be able to cover the gaps in between what's shown on the documents or what's not shown on the documents. We write it out into the front ends to be able to make sure that we have all the gaps covered amongst all the scopes as well as the contract documents. So this is, when we go out to bid on each of the GMP packages, this is kind of a list of what, generally what gets distributed. Primarily the invitation and instructions to bidders. This is basically a step-by-step of what is included, what's expected of you all to provide to us, when, all the pertinent dates associated with it. And really just kind of give you guys a point of contact within Sundt of who you guys would be referring to and contacting as the bid process goes from bid advertisement to bids due. It includes the detailed scopes of work, so that really defines your inclusions and exclusions of the scope, bid forms, exhibits and attachments, construction schedule, drawing and specifications, geotechnical reports, and other supplemental information such as site logistics drawings and laydown plans, excavation and stockpile plans. We have rudimentary documents we've put together already that help define how the job will be executed. So what I want to take a little bit of time to go over is the instructions to bidders. This is an important document that we want to convey to everyone. So first part of this is it kind of goes through the bidding requirements and procedures. And with that, it defines exactly what the bidding documents are. So it'll give you a table of contents of here's all the documents that are part of this bidding effort. The bidding procedures, when bids are due, how to submit them, when are RFIs due, when's the cutoff date for addenda to come out. So it's clear, cut, and dry to you all of when what's expected of you, as well as what's expected of us to you. We also have information in there regarding substitutions. In the specs are pretty clear of what these are the products that have been that are preferred. But there are a lot of we'll call it or equals that are allowed within the specifications, and we convey of how if you choose to bid a job using an or equal, is how do you convey that to us up front when you bid the job, so you can be able to take that into account when evaluating your bid. And then also subcontractor pre-qualification. This is a requirement that we have that all subcontractors have to go through a very simple pre-qualification process, and I'll go over that here right after this slide. Also, we'll go through the project requirements and procedures. So really, it's the defining what the statement of work is. Again, what your inclusions, exclusions are, and ultimately what is being completed on the project, how submittals are handled, the schedule, and defining how like I said, we're providing a schedule with the documents, but this also walks through of how we incorporate your feedback on the schedule into and take that into account.
So the schedule is an important piece in this bidding process. When you let's say you have a traditional design bid build job, and you're a masonry subcontractor, you bid the job, kind of how you see it going together. Well, we provided you a schedule in the bid doc so you can see when that masonry work occurs, how much will be going concurrent, so that you can, dial in your bid and have, make sure you have the right resources available to meet our schedule. So that's an important piece to our bidding process.
Yep. We also define what the project closeout entails, be it project closeout documents, attic stock, more for equipment type scopes of work that having to provide owner and maintenance manuals, training, anything of that sort. It also defines the WWSS requirements. So if you're unfamiliar with WWSS, WWSS is a federal program that it provides funding for this project, but along with attached to that funding are certain requirements that we all must follow. So it defines what those requirements are, as well as along with that, it ties us to Davis-Bacon wages. Now this project, let's step back a little bit. This project does recognize, and it will be following Oregon prevailing wages, as well as Davis-Bacon wages. So the way it'll have to work is, let's say if you have an electrician, you'd have to compare prevailing wage rate versus the Davis-Bacon wage rate, and you have to pay the higher of the two.
Minimum of the higher of the two.
The minimum rate of the higher of the two. And then it also goes through warranty information of the project, and kind of defining what's required with that.
One more thing on the WWSS, Mike mentioned the minimum labor rates. With that is also the inclusion of the use of American iron and steel. So, for instance, concrete reinforcement, all that has to be, domestically sourced steel. Same with the structural steel. Anything that's basically a metal component There are certain exceptions to that, and I think this has been around long enough that most firms are familiar with it and know what those exceptions are, such as like specialized process equipment and electrical equipment don't fall under that. But your main metal fabrications, I won't list all of them, but it's your, structural steel, miscellaneous metals, concrete reinforcement, your steel castings like manhole lids and things like that. So when these documents do come out, that'll be something that you'll need to pay special attention to.
Yeah, good point. We'll go through the insurance requirements. We've put together I think it's a pretty simple matrix that explains, for each work category package, whatever work category package you're bidding on, it tells you exactly what your insurance requirements are. So kind of try to take the guessing out of the situation that tends to happen during bidding efforts. And then, last but not least, the bidding documents, the contract documents itself. So I mentioned earlier about the pre-qualification process. So the purpose of the pre-qualification process is to ensure that all the subcontractors are meeting a minimum threshold to perform and execute the work per Sundt's expectations. Really, this wants to make sure that this is benefits the bidder and benefits Sundt in a way that we want to make sure that someone is not, put it better, where it's getting in over their head on being able to not necessarily execute this given work, but execute the size of work. So what we do is we have a simple web-based process that's at the very bottom there. We have the website, and then also it's also on the Our Reliable Water website, has this link. We ask that you go on there, take a look at it. Very simple. The pre-qualification process, at a minimum, we ask that you just simply provide your insurance certification, your safety records. We want to know what your last 3 years of EMR were, and then project records for up to $250,000 per project. So really, and by what I mean by $250,000 per project, all we really need is your insurance cert, safety records, and project records. That way, we can be able to verify, yes, you are who you say you are, and you're a legitimate contractor that can be able to do work. That automatically guarantees you to be able to bid on our projects of up to $250,000. If you want to pre-qualify for above that $250,000 project limit, we ask that there's next step of providing a letter from your surety and just some simple financial statements that we can be able to make sure that you're able to, that your firm is able to be financially stable, be able to cover work of that size. We ask that if you have any questions or comments regarding the pre-qualification process, please go to prequal@subqual-llc.com or contact us by phone at 1-800-407-6192. And like I said, you can also be able to go to the pre-qualification website, which is www.sundt.com/subcontractor-portal. And again, that's on the Our Reliable website as well. So feel free to visit there. And like I said, it's a pretty quick 5-minute process to get the $250,000 limit. And then if you need to get above that, it's a little bit extra backup you need to provide. And it's a fairly quick and painless process.
I just posted that link into the chat too, so you'll be able to access it later. Smart Bid. So I'm not sure most of you are probably familiar with Smart Bid or softwares like it, where it's an electronic plan room. It allows us to be able to put all the documents up onto a common software, and everyone has access. All the bidders have access to it. So we utilize Smart Bid, and for this, and this will be for the plan room, bid documentation, bid addenda, and then also bid submissions. And including bid documentation, includes all of the invitation to bid, instruction to bidders, bid and proposal forms, work category, scopes of work, general conditions,
sample contracts, Sundt safety manual, and then the drawings and specs. If you do not yet have access to SmartBid, feel free to contact Brent Edwards at pbedwards@sundt.com, or you can call him at 480-293-3322. Or you can be able to contact David, myself, or Jared.
Yeah, and that's also why I would ask that, again, that you post your contact information in the chat or email me. Some of you have already done that. I've seen that I've already gotten a couple emails. But what we'll do is we'll have you in our system. So aside from, public advertisements, we will also have the invitation automatically sent by entering in your information prior. So that's why it's important that we get your contact info.
Yep. And I just want to put this out there, kind of last but not least, is that because of the nature of this project, we are requiring a non-disclosure agreement, which once you do get access to SmartBid, the very first thing that will pop up is our non-disclosure agreement, and you must sign it before you're able to get access to any of the documents. And like I said, this is just due to the nature of this project and due to security reasons. Going on next to the bid form, we just wanted to walk you through what that entails. Jared?
Yeah, so when it comes to actually submitting your bid, we're asking that all of your bids come in on this bid form. What we've done is we've developed a unique bid form for each one of the work packages. So the one that I have at the bottom of the screen there, embedded, that's for structural concrete for the main process area. Each one of these bid forms is going to be unique to the work package that we're developing, and you'll see why here in a second. The reason that we're going to use this bid form is it does a couple of things for Sundt. The first is that it's uniform within a work package to make sure that we can get comparison for all pricing components, and that's not just the lump sum portions of it, but it's also the anything with unit pricing or alternates to make sure that we have everything covered, and we have a really fast way to compare all of the bids that we receive within a single work category. The other thing the bid form does for us is it has a section in there for you to acknowledge all of the terms and conditions and documents that you would have received as part of the bidding process. So Mike, if you can pop that open so we can get a sneak peek at kind of what one of these bid forms looks like. So like I mentioned, this is a bid form for this job that we're in the process of developing. So right now this is in draft status for the main process area for the concrete. Top of the form has just got some generic identifying information. Next section down is your information as the bidder, and that 1.1 contract review. That's one of the acknowledgments that we're asking for as you go through the process of looking at all of the documents we've provided. We're going to provide you with a sample form of the agreement, whether that's a subcontract agreement or purchase order agreement. We'd like you to take a look at that, read through the terms and conditions, and make sure that either you provided a red line copy back to us or you agree with everything that's in that form, so that we can, whenever it comes time to issue these contracts, that we're able to expedite and make sure that these documents get processed as quickly as possible. Section 2 is scope of work, identifies what this bid package is for and acknowledges all of the addendums that may have been received or issued, any changes to the instructions that we provided between opening this thing for bid and actually the bid date. Section 3 is all of the pricing components of the job. So if we go down to 3.2, the bid breakdown, that's what I'm saying is the unique section between each one of these bid forms. And so for the main process area for the concrete, these are the buildings and structures that are within that main process area, as well as a breakdown within them. So we provided the columns on the left, the WBS and the description for what we're asking you to do. The 4 columns on the right for the quantities, units, man hours, and total price, those are for the bidder to fill in. So that section over there is for is what needs to be filled out for that section.
And again, the reason why we ask for that information is we want to make sure amongst all the bidders that we're comparing apples to apples. What we don't want is someone going in there and completely overshooting or undershooting a quantity, which would then potentially put them at risk. If awarded, then they could potentially have a major fault within their bid.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at how we do that apples to apples comparison inside the abstract. So this is a unit pricing. If we haven't asked for unit pricing, then there's no need to fill anything in on this section. But if we do ask for unit pricing for certain items, then this would be where that goes. Under bid alternates, there's a couple sections of the project that the owner has specifically asked us to evaluate to include or not include, dependent on pricing. And so we've taken that and asked, okay, in this example, alternate 7 standby generator number 2, the owner is trying to determine whether or not we should include the standby generator number 2. So we want to know what your price would be for including that standby generator number 2 in the job, so that we can evaluate overall between all the scopes what the total impact to the value of the job would be to include that generator number 2. Below that, there's a section for voluntary alternates. So as you're going through the documents and developing your takeoffs, if you see something in the documents that you believe would provide some value engineering to the project or to improve quality, reduce cost, those are fantastic. They're great. Let's get those in there. Let's put them into the voluntary bid alternate section so that we can evaluate them as part of the apples to apples comparison. And those would be proprietary to your business. There's if we end up awarding you the contract, those would be your voluntary alternates. As far as markup and fees for change of the work, those are contractual limits within the prime contract for how any of the change orders that you might have on the job in the future, those would be the limits for those markups and fees that would come through. All right. Section 4 is our minority business enterprise and disadvantaged business enterprise participation for you to fill in just for our own tracking purposes to make sure that we're abiding by all the regulatory terms. Section 5 is the acknowledgements. Each one of the exhibits that we've included in the bid documents, we'd like you to acknowledge to make sure that you've considered everything within that exhibit and included all the information, and it's part of your pricing to include all of the requirements of each one of these exhibits. And I can cover some of those, what's in each one of these exhibits in another slide. And then last but not, or I'm sorry, section 6 is any of your own personal clarifications or exclusions that you want to clarify for the job. So this is free form as you went through here and you read through the statement of work, anything that you think that needs to be identified as a clarification to your scope of work if the job was awarded to your business would be included here in section 6. And then the final section is the bid expiration and signature. Authorized signature and who's certifying that this your company is okay with this bid. And then we'll take that bid form and incorporate it into our abstracting process. All right, so next up is our abstracting process, or how we do bid evaluations. Some folks call this leveling. Sometimes it's we call it abstracting. It effectively what it does is it's just giving us an apple-to-apple comparison between different bids within the same work package. So all of that information that we ask for in the bid form will get imported into this abstract master, and this is how we'll compare between two bidders on the exact same work category. Now, what's important on this one is anything that we've acknowledged that you have excluded on your bid that was included in our statement of work. We need to make sure that we've monetized any of those exclusions or changes that you have to the statement of work. And what that allows us to do is if we end up awarding the contract to your firm and you've excluded something, we need somebody else to cover that portion of the work. So it allows us to make sure that we're, as a GC, covered to have a complete scope of work. And so that really allows us to make sure that everything is covered for our guaranteed maximum price that we're providing to the owner, that we're not going to be going back and asking for change orders on things that were defined in the documents.
And a good example of that would be let's say if you're an HVAC subcontractor and we've asked that you provide hoisting for the installation of your equipment, and you want to exclude crane or hoisting for that. We ask that you let us know that you want to exclude that, and that gives us the ability to plug in money to be able to cover that, or have another trade cover that hoisting on your behalf.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So at the end of the abstracting process, what we're really doing here is we're presenting our evaluation, Sundt's evaluation, and we'll make a joint decision with the owner on who should be selected for the project. And so that's the final component, the final purpose of this abstracting process is to present our recommendations so that we can jointly decide on who's going to be the subcontractors for the project under the defined selection method. Now, as Mike mentioned before, some of the packages are going to be best value packages. So for the low bid requirements, low bid jobs, we're looking for that bid form. Anything that's identified as a best value package is going to have an additional qualifications-based section to it. That's going to be a list of questions or requirements that we'll provide in a separate document. And that'll come back to us in the form of your proposal. Probably no more than a couple pages. We don't want to make this thing extremely lengthy. That will be evaluated by the owner for those qualifications, graded and evaluated, and it'll be a component of the overall selection process in addition to the pricing.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention on this is the best value, or where the owner is involved in the selection of the trade. As I started out saying, Sundt has a concrete division and does certain self-perform activities. So Sundt will be a bidder on some of the packages, and that's mainly on your structural concrete, process mechanical, earthwork, and utilities,
structural steel.
and structural steel. So members of the ownership team are on the call today. And as we said, all of those selections will be made with the owner. So I just wanted to point that out real quick.
All right, can you pop open that abstract, Mike? All right, so this is a generic abstract form, the abstract master, and it basically all we're going to do is we're going to take the bid form as it was returned to us by you, input your information into here, and include any of the inclusions or exclusions and the acknowledgments thereof in this document. And like I said, or like Mike pointed out, if you have a specific exclusion in there, like you're a mechanical contractor and you want to exclude hoisting, this is where we're going to monetize that exclusion to make sure that the three bidders are an apples to apples comparison. And at the end of the process, we'll highlight the bidder that Sundt believes is best qualified and has the best price for completing the job, and present that to the owner. All right. So the last component here is our exhibit. So whenever you log into SmartBid, what you're going to see is this list of documents right here that you'll be able to download and take a look at. And I'll quickly take you through a couple of these. I just want to point out at the beginning the difference here. You see that some are labeled exhibits and some are labeled attachments. The difference there is that all of the exhibits that are going to be in the bidding phase, those are going to transition directly over to being a component of the contract. So if you're the successful bidder on the job, everything that was in the exhibits that you had as part of the bid package, those are going to become an exhibit on the subcontractor purchase order agreement as well. The attachments are only going to be used for the bidding purposes. So they're still going to be in SmartBid. They're important for the bidding process, but they're not going to be part of the final contract. Rolling through a couple of these real quick for you, some of the more important ones. So Exhibit A is your scope of work directive. That's going to describe the scope of work, statement of work for you in supplement to the contract drawings. And what I mean by supplement, I think Mike did a pretty good job of describing it earlier, is definition of the trade limits, coordination, and any coverage of the gaps. So it really provides the path that we want this subcontract or purchase order to take as they're going through it. Exhibit B1 and B2, those are special project requirements. So any of the general inclusions or exclusions that are going to apply to everybody, regardless of their scope of work, are going to be in Exhibit B1 and B2. So that's going to be another important document to take a look at. Exhibit C is our schedule. D is our safety management plan. Exhibit E, list of bidding documents. That's another important one right there. So what's going to be included in Exhibit E is all of the important contract documents, the drawings and the specifications, as well as the geotech reports. We're also going to have some of our permits in there that are going to be relevant to your scopes of work. So we're working on some erosion and sediment control plan permits, as well as a few others that are going to be relevant to certain scopes, and those are going to be contained in Exhibit E. Exhibit F is our insurance requirements for all the job. Exhibit G, lean construction. Lean is a program that Sundt has been using for a couple years, and it describes how we do both short-term and long-term scheduling. So that Exhibit G is just a quick summary form. It'll provide you like a 10,000 foot overview of how Sundt intends on having some contractor participation in how we manage both the short-term and long-term schedule on the job. Exhibit H is Textura overview. It's our subcontractor payment management system, how you get paid, how you submit your pay applications. Our quality management program. Exhibit J is our prime contract, and that's the prime contract between Sundt and the Tualatin Valley Water District, City of Hillsborough, and Beaverton that defines Sundt's scope of work. That is available as an Exhibit J for you to take a look at as well. And then some of these smaller ones, Exhibit K is going to have some acknowledgement forms. Exhibits L, N, O, those are all going to be part of the WIFIA requirements that we'll need you to take a look at. Exhibit M is our building information model. So especially when it comes to some of the interior scopes, and by interior I mean electrical, mechanical, process integration, and architectural scopes, those are going to require a certain level of coordination between trades. And so the BIM requirements contain that information in order to make sure that we're all playing by the same rule book and contributing information so that we can coordinate amongst each other and get this project built correctly. Exhibit P, so at the time that we advertise the GMP, we'll have pulled down the wage determination from the prevailing wage or the Davis-Bacon and included that in Exhibit P. And then Exhibit R is our construction management plan, and that's going to have our layout of how we're going to provide certain cranes, hoisting, or temporary utilities for the job site, where laydown yards are, where construction trailers are, and those items.
All right, so as I kind of started out saying, this meeting would look a lot like a official pre-bid, but it's again more of a general informational meeting so that we can present this project to the community, generate interest and provide those bidding opportunities to support the project. So today was a general overview of the project in our bidding process. Going forward, we are going to have some more specialized meetings. Some of the information that we'll present, but these meetings going forward are more so by division, where we wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about those specific scope items, give you a preview into what the scope of work says in the specific documents. So all of you found the link for today's meeting by going from our advertisement in the DJC and then going to the Our Reliable Water website. That's the program's website for everything related here. And at the bottom of the page, we've listed out the subsequent meetings, basically on a weekly basis, starting next week. Based on the various divisions. so we encourage you, if the work that you have falls within the topic for that week, to again join us for that meeting where we'll dive into this information a little bit more. And again, it's just to provide awareness and provide as much information so that you are can see what's involved in the project and hopefully generate that interest and excitement in participating with us.
Yep. And like David mentioned, on subsequent upcoming meetings, we'll be going through the scope of works specific to those divisions, as well as kind of going through the documents and the model. So that way you all get a better understanding of the project, and hopefully, make you guys aware of what's expected prior to the bid documents coming out.
And it's also a way for us to see what questions that you have so that we can improve upon them and make them more biddable, I guess, for each of you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, because the more eyes we can have look at some of these scopes and the coordination between the scopes, the better, and maybe we could be able to take some of the comments and improve upon our documents prior to bid time.
Okay, so with that, we didn't have anything else. I've scrolled through the attendees list, and several names I recognize, but again, I do encourage you to you shoot us an email, put your contact information in the chat. Outside of that, we have a few minutes left, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask those, type those into the chat. So we'll open it up to the group, so we'll just be online here if anyone has any questions. Okay, so I see one question came in the chat about if you had looked at the project for us, in some of the preliminary estimating and gone through the pre-qualification process, do you need to pre-qualify again? The answer to that is it should be no. It's within the allotted time to where you'll still be in our system and pre-qualified.
Correct.
One thing to note is we do strongly encourage companies to go through that pre-qualification process early and get that done. If you should happen to not do that prior to the advertisement, it won't prevent you from obtaining the documents or bidding on it, but we will not be able to evaluate your bid until we have had you go through the pre-qualification process.
Correct.
So again, we strongly encourage some proactiveness on that. And like Mike said when he walked through that, it's pretty non-invasive, so it should be pretty quick and simple for you to do. And our team, our contacts that we've listed for that are very helpful and can help get you through that pretty easily.
Any other questions?
Okay, well, you have our contact information. Again, you can find out, follow up on this information by continuing to check the Our Reliable website for updates. And again, when we do get ready to bid for GMP 1, we will advertise again in the DJC, so you will definitely see more public advertisements.
Yep.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and hopefully we'll be talking with you and working with you soon.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.